Welcome back to the Be a Man podcast, where we encourage men to be better men. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad that you are joining us for this special episode. I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Matt. He runs a podcast. He runs a Instagram. A lot of content out there, really good content. He's serious about what he's doing. He travels in a band. He's serious about preaching the gospel, sharing his faith, about becoming a better man, leading his boys into manhood. And I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation. It was encouraging to me. There's several points that he makes that I think will be helpful to you, encouraging to you, and just try to help you become a better man. Just the whole mission, the whole purpose of this podcast, my content, is that very thing, is I want to push you. You are not alone. You are in the battle with other men, and there are other guys who are going through many of the same things you are going through, and I want you to be encouraged by that, and I think you will be as you listen to this. I will drop all his info in the description, so go check him out as well. In other news, if you want to know more about what I'm doing, if you want to search me on some other platform, social media, whatever, all that is in the description. There's also a free resource for you, just a couple day kind of devotional, just 5 essentials to becoming a better man that I think are important for any man to embrace. There's also some gear if you want to pick something up to help support the podcast. I greatly appreciate that. If not, that's okay too. It's something cool to be on the same page about, and I thank you for it ahead of time if you choose to go check that out. If you're interested in coming on ever and just sharing a little bit about your story, your desires to see men become better men. Maybe you have a unique story you'd like to share, or a situation you were in that really shaped or molded you into becoming a man of faith, or just a man that is stronger or better because of that person or that situation. Come on, let's have a conversation. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be anything, just gonna go up in front of 20,000 people and share this, this TED talk or whatever. But it's just your story, and we all have one, and I think other guys and myself would love to hear it. And that's something I've been overwhelmed with, is that my goal is to give resources and tools and a platform for men to come on and share how God is teaching them, but also just how they are reshaping or relearning or becoming better men in their lives and in their family and their friends and all those different things. But I have found that I've been encouraged by these conversations, and I would love to hear your story and what God is teaching you and how you are daily pursuing becoming a better man. I know it's not going to be every single day where you are just going to be flying high, right? There's ups and downs to this life, and let's talk about that as well. But either way, whatever you have, just come on, let's have a conversation. I would love to hear it, and I think other guys would be encouraged by it as well. So with that, let's get into it. All right. Welcome to the podcast. I'm glad you're here. I want to give you the platform now. Introduce yourself. Who are you? I know a little bit about you, but others, first-time listeners, they may not. So it's all yours.
Well, my name is Matt Franklin, and I'm from a small town in Kentucky. I don't know if you've heard of Wolf Creek Dam. It's actually the largest man-made dam that in the United States, and so it's a small town. We got a lot of everybody knows everybody where we're at. So I'm 35 years old. I preach the gospel. We also have a band on the side. We travel and we sing and worship the Lord. And I've got 4 beautiful children and a beautiful wife that I've been married to for 11 years. And I actually have my own painting business. When we're not traveling during the week, I paint, and that's been a pretty successful business that God's blessed me with. And my wife homeschools our children while I'm at work. So we have a pretty pretty busy life, really. Some people that's never homeschooled their children would probably look at our lives and say, well, you don't have, much going on. But my wife, I always said my wife holds the house together and I put the roof on it. So that's kind of how that thing works. And I'm like the principal. When I come home, I like, bark the orders. And my wife pretty much handles everything while I'm not home. So, yeah, we got a pretty busy life.
Hey, we, you're speaking my language here because we're not too far in age, and we've got 4 kids as well. And we homeschool just as well. And, we've got one who's she's in 7th grade now, one in 3rd, and then one in kindergarten. So the older one, the 7th grader, she's getting into that pre-algebra and stuff like that now. So my wife's oh.
Yeah.
she's like learning it all over again because I mean, she's like me, and we didn't, take to it very quickly in high school either. So it's just kind of like we're relearning all these things with them. And you're right, man. We are busy all the time. And I'm like, what? Why? How? But It's just, I mean, there's always something to do. You have to be more purposeful, I think, and giving your kids opportunities to make friendships and that sort of thing. So I just think there's a lot more that goes into it than what people really want to think there is. But it's fun. I wouldn't do it any other way. I never thought we'd homeschool, but it has been a great experience for our family. I know that.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. I think a lot of people have this stigma that, well, if I homeschool my children, they're not going to be very sociable. They're not going to know as much. But trust me when I say my kids are very sociable. They can talk to anybody, any age, anytime. For example, like if we're out eating and they need sauce, we'll tell them to go ask for it. And they get right up off their seat and they go ask for it. And they say, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. And so there's that quality that you get with your children when you, and it takes effort. You can homeschool your children and just kind of throw a book at them and say, here you go. But when you spend time with them and teach them and one-on-one, it does make a huge difference in your children's lives. So, yeah,
I think it really hit home for me. I think it may have been my son. He was struggling with something. I don't even remember what it was now. It was last year. And my wife was able to take like an extra week or so and just work with him on just that subject. And I'm like, I never got that in school. I mean, I was a public school kid and I never got that. And it's huge for our kids. I know. And I'm sure you guys are going through it or will go through it in the future too. There's just lots of opportunities there that you just have to take advantage of, I think. And it's fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But you run an Instagram account that I enjoy, but why don't you talk a little bit about that and share with people what you're trying to do with it?
Well, actually, the Instagram account was a extension of the podcast that I started. It was really my wife's idea to start the Instagram. She said, you're going to reach more people and you need an Instagram. You just got to have an Instagram. And of course, we know these women, they know what's up nowadays and they know what's going on. So I took her advice and I'm glad I did. I'm 2 years in on the podcast now. And really, this was an inspiration from God. I told one person this, I believe, last year, that this was God spoken. This was God dealing with me to start this. It was really an idea I had in the back of my mind for a few years, and it would just kind of come to me and go and come and go. And I thought, well, it'd be cool to have a podcast and share the gospel through the podcast. And one night, it was like it was on my mind so strong, and it clicked. And I asked God, I said, God, is this you dealing with me to start this? And I said, if this is you, I want you to continue to deal with me. Don't let it leave my mind. Just keep putting it in my mind. But if this is not you, take it out of my heart. Take the desire away. I don't want it. Because I'm the type of person that if I'm going to start a new venture, I want to know that, hey, God's leading the charge here. So that night, all night. I could hear myself doing interviews. I could hear myself. I would wake up hearing myself on a podcast doing interviews and talking and spreading the gospel. When I woke up that morning, I knew that God had been dealing with me to do this. And it's funny because the way God works is a lot of times it's a still small voice, and we're looking for, firecrackers, and we're looking for an earthquake. And I think it was Elijah that, he was looking for God in the earthquake, the fire, but see, God came in a still small voice. And most of the time in my life, I've found that God will deal with you gently, and he'll continue nudging if it's something he's calling you to do. And I'm so glad that I did, because 2 years in now, I'm not reaching millions, and that's fine. But I've noticed, I went back and looked at my statistics on my podcast, and I'm reaching people in other countries, which is such an awesome blessing, that people from other countries maybe they'll never hear the gospel unless they download that podcast. And so that's encouraging. And I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm learning, but it's been very rewarding.
Yeah. That is cool. The statistics that you see of people in other countries, like, how in the world did they find, like, I've not been doing this very long. I'm like, how in the world did they even hear about this?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just cool that maybe there's an opportunity somewhere else, that a platform that 20 years ago, this wasn't possible. You know what I mean? And now we have the opportunity to kind of share the gospel, talk about Jesus, all those things in a whole new way that may reach people that may not hear it otherwise. And we just don't know, especially in a few of the countries I've seen on my thing. But it's just interesting. It's cool, though. So, I mean, what are you trying to do with your content? Like, what's the main directive? What are you trying to hit at? And what are your goals, I guess?
Well, I guess you could say I'm out in the deep, and I'm swimming, and I'm just seeing where the water takes me.
Yeah.
So I felt like that's kind of the way it started. I was like thrown in the deep, and I never had any experience with it. I didn't know what I was doing, really. But the main focus of it is the unbiased truth, to spread the unbiased truth. And like you were just saying, if we only reach a few people in our community, or if we reach people in other countries, I'm just doing what God told me to do, and I'm going to let him take it as far as he wants to take it. If I one day see 1 million downloads, that would be awesome. But if I only have a few that here and there, they get exposed to the truth and it changed their lives, that's what really matters to me. So, yeah,
that's pretty cool. Do your kids know that you do this? I mean, how has it impacted them?
Oh, yeah. They love it. They think it's cool. Every now and then we'll kind of listen in. Of course, I'm the type of person, you probably do this. I'm my own worst critic, and I'll go back and listen to my episodes and kind of critique myself. And then I might hear something that I'm like, wow, I didn't remember saying that, just kind of, but, we'll listen to it every now and then, and they think it's pretty cool. But other than that, they just kind of do their own thing, and I do my own thing. So, yeah,
I understand. Yeah, mine, I may have them on here at Christmas because they've been asking to do something with me. So that
would be cool.
But we'll see what happens.
Well, we did that.
Interesting.
I think we did that last Christmas. I just got the whole family on and introduced everybody. And my youngest, she was just a few months old. And so you could kind of hear the noises there, her noises she was making. It was really cool. It was different. We just kind of on the spurt, just done it, and it was fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we're gonna try it. I'm just trying to figure out how that's gonna look. I mean, with my older two, it will be a little easier, but the youngest, I don't think he's gonna have any time on there. But just getting him to sit still is a goal right now. 2-year-olds, that's how they are. But as you know, my content's more geared towards men, encouraging men to be better men. That's kind of my saying, my go-to. But what does that look like in your different endeavors, your different ministries, your your band that you're a part of, how have you seen this fleshed out? How can we encourage men to be better men?
Um, well, just what you're doing, we can talk about it more. I think in our generation, we're seeing a lot of demasculating of the men. And really, if you want to be spiritual about it, you can look back when Jezebel, she tried to remove all of the prophets and the men of God, the voices of truth. And she even had men working for her that were demasculated. And this was a spirit in the land that tried to, pretty much remove all truth, all voices that would oppose evil. And that's what we're seeing today. Even in the past 5 to 10 years, we've noticed an unfolding. And it's almost like the gears have been turned up, and the feminist movement and a lot of things that have been going on to try to censor, God's people and voices. And
go into that a little bit more, because I think you're hitting on something I would love to go deeper into. Yeah. And demasculating and feminism, the rise of it. Dude, go as far as you want to go into it.
Yeah. Of course, you see that a lot on, if you're not careful, when you look at a lot of the entertainment, and we know entertainment has a great, how do I put this, sway on people's opinions.
Yeah.
And that's what I think one of the greatest tools that is used to decompose our minds, deconstruct our minds, and reconstruct them in a way where we think more feminine. Not that that's a bad thing. We should, we need to have a soft side. You look at Jesus' life, and when Lazarus was dead, the Bible says Jesus wept when he seen, the hurt, when he seen everyone else was so emotionally moved that they thought they lost Lazarus. And Jesus wept. And that's one of the most powerful scriptures. But Jesus was all man. He was all God. He was all powerful. But even in his strength and his power, he was able to shed a tear. And that says something about men that want to follow Jesus, men that want to follow the truth. We can read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and read Jesus' life and understand what it means to be a man. There was times when he called people out. He called them sons of snakes and vipers, and he called them white sepulchres, but he knew who to oppose, and he knew who to have understanding with. And so that's, I think, where we need to, at times we need to be able to discern when someone's really in a struggle and they don't understand what they're going through. We need to have an understanding heart. But when it comes time for us to rebuke someone or expose a lie or speak the truth out boldly, we don't back down. We just got to speak it. And if people don't like it, that's on them. But as a preacher of the gospel, that's my job, is to speak the unbiased truth and do it in love and let God handle the results.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. I think there's two sides. I think a lot of us like to emphasize the more harder masculine traits that I think are missing right now. The courage, the, bettering ourselves, and, whether it's physical strength, whatever it may be. I think we like to emphasize those things because they've been missing for so long. But I do think what you're touching on there is that there's also a side that is caring, that is understanding, that will sympathize with those who need to be sympathized with. And if we're not careful, I think we can kind of, the scales will be unbalanced a little bit. And I do think there's times where we must be the ones who are harder, are more rigid, all that side. But there's also more times, when my 5-year-old falls off her bike or whatever and comes running up to me, she needs a dad who she knows is going to care, and
Right.
who has that side of him that will show the compassion and care. And I think there's been times throughout history where we've seen those scales unbalanced. And
Hmm.
right now we're on the, it's not even that we're a caring society. It's almost like it's almost like we don't care at all anymore about
Right.
anything. I mean, the culture around this is it's just turned so far upside down. And we've seen it our whole lives. I mean, we can remember shows when we were younger, because we're close in age. You could see the man being the fool. I mean, he was walked all over. But then you just go back 20 years before that, and you've got like Andy Griffith's show, and it was
Right.
nothing like that at all. And you've just seen this like devaluing of men throughout the last 40 years, and it's going to crumble. It's just going to crumble.
Yeah.
I mean,
You need
I
strong men.
yeah.
We need
So
strong. We need more strong leaders. Not that a woman can't be a leader, but that's the man's job is to lead his family. And at the end of the day, I've said this to my church. I've said this to my family. At the end of the day, I'm not my kid's friend. I'm their dad.
Yeah.
And I'm their father. And so when it comes time for me to correct, something that they've done wrong, say if one child hits another one, hey, I've got to correct that. I've got to let them know, hey, you don't hurt your brother. You love your brother. And that's the same with, society in general. When it comes to the wrongs, we have to be willing to call those wrongs out and be willing to say, hey, you don't do that. That according to God's word, you don't do that. And so, yeah, it's very important for the voices of the men to rise up and begin to just simply speak the truth and be the leaders that God called them to be,
Yeah. So let's say I work a lot with teens. But let's say we've got some younger people or maybe some older people, I don't know, but who are on the fence, and their eyes are starting to open up to these things, and they're realizing they need to be the ones who speak the truth. They need to be stronger men. What are some, 2 to 3, whatever ways that they could start taking those steps? What are some things they could do, in your opinion?
Well, you can start with a word. You can, if you want to be a voice of truth, you have to know truth. And there's a lot of people nowadays that think truth is really subjective, and it's my truth.
Yeah.
It's what I believe. And that's where the idea of truth has been so skewed to, it's just subjective, but it's not. Truth is objective. And if you've seen a brother or sister, walk out or get ready to walk across the road and there's a car coming, what would you do? Would you say, well, I would rather not hurt their feelings, but they're going to die?
Yeah.
And so we have to know the seriousness of truth. We have to know that at the end of the day, we're looking out for our brother, our sister, our neighbor.
Yeah.
And if they are mad at us for simply being honest with them, then that's their choice. But we have nothing to regret. Yeah. We can lay our head down at night and we can know, hey, I did my best, and we have no regrets. So I guess what I'm trying to say is start with truth. Open the Bible, read it, find truth, and start walking it out and be an example. And if you're simply an example, a lot of times people will come to you for questions and they will ask you, and that's your open door to tell them the truth.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So as we think about becoming stronger men and those types of things, like, what is God teaching you, or what are you working on right now to become a better man in your own life?
Patience.
I could have said the same thing.
Yeah. A lot of I know a lot of people personally that say, don't pray for patience. God will put you through a trial,
Yeah.
because, the Bible talks about that. We know that if you pray for patience, what you're asking for is, God, allow me to go through the trials that you have for me and to teach me what you want to teach me in those moments. And I guess the main thing that God is dealing with me lately about is to be more compassionate, because we need to have more understanding, and to be more patient with others, because they really don't see things like I do. Yeah. And just because I know something, that I know that it's the unbiased truth, but they don't know that, I can't judge them for that. I can't be hard on them for that. I have to be understanding, and I have to be patient with some people. And God is teaching me patience lately.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. It's just, man, we're all on different spots in our spiritual journey, is how I like to put it. And sometimes people are just brand new, and sometimes people have been in it for a long time. And sometimes I struggle with, I'd like for somebody to be here, way up here, but they're still way back here, and they're still trying to get past, I think Paul calls it, the milk of the word, but I really want them to get that solid food, but they're kind of just on the fence whether or not they're going to just go all in or not. And I just want them to push through. And I'm right there with you. I struggle with patience.
But that's those people don't bother me, because I know that I was there once, and I don't claim to know anything. I'm still learning. I've got a lot of learning to do. But I was there once when I made those mistakes, and I look back, I'm like, how dumb. Why didn't I know any better? And but if you allow the Holy Ghost to teach you, if you allow God to teach you, He will teach you. But it's the people that have felt like they've arrived and they've been in it so long that you can't ever expose them to anything that's in God's word, because they've already learned it, they know it, they've been there, they've done it. It's those type of people that I really have to be patient with.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, man, I hear you. It's a struggle. I think it's a struggle. Yeah, there's just so many things we could go into there, but I just, what kind of music do you guys play? What's your band do?
Well, we're a contemporary worship band.
Okay, cool.
We travel mainly in the state, but we've been in the surrounding states as well. We've been in Tennessee, Ohio.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
God giving you some opportunities there, just to.
That could be a whole nother podcast right there. Yeah, I've had some pretty, I think in my mind, some pretty huge opportunities. Some contracts have been put before me, and I'm glad looking back now that I turned them down, because had I not turned down those opportunities I had, I don't think I'd be preaching the gospel today, because at one time music was everything to me. God was everything, but music was number one. It was like, this is what I'm called to do. This is the thing, that the main thing. And looking back now, I realize, that the main thing I've always been called to do is preach. Yeah. That's my main calling. Singing is an addition, and I'm called to sing as well. But so I'm happy where I'm at. I'm blessed. Yeah. I'm thankful for where God's brought me.
So that's, maybe I can get you to see what you think about this, but it's been on my mind lately, because I'm really glad to hear what you just said there about, what your real mission, what your real calling you feel is to preach the gospel, because it seems as though there's a lot of contemporary Christian groups, singers, and I'm not opposed to them, but it seems like a lot of them, they get so caught up in the music and, the traveling and the shows and all that. It's like we've seen several just go off the deep end, and some even leave the faith. I mean, it just, how do you explain that? I mean, in your thoughts about it, I guess.
Music is so powerful. I mean, at one time, the music scene had me captivated. The idea of traveling and well, the only way I can explain it is it. I guess I could go back to the lead worship leader of heaven. At one time was Lucifer,
Yeah.
and he owns the music industry as a whole. But God still has His way of He can bleed through that, and He has His ministers. I do truly believe that. But when God kicked Satan out of heaven, He made him the god of this world. Mm-hmm. And He, as the Bible says, He's the God over the airways. I mentioned that in one of my very first podcasts, that how He has the power over the music industry, the entertainment industry, and how it has such a sway on people's perspective. It's almost like you can preach to them through music. And the idea of, I guess, the fame and the popularity and the money, I think it has a control over some people's decisions. And I believe if I would have done that, 5-10 years ago, it probably would have took me on a road that I wouldn't really cared what I did. I would have sung any song. I would have done anything, just for the popularity and the thrill of it, Yeah. And I think that's where some artists, they start out well, they have good intentions, they mean well, but they just get captivated by the whole idea of it. Yeah. And it just, before you know it, you're so far in, you don't know how you got there,
Yeah. Yeah. Like I loved Caedmon's Call. They were, I mean, they were awesome. But I mean, Derek Webb, I mean, he's completely left the faith now. And I'm like, how, like, the songs were so rich in theology and things. And I'm like, how does somebody get to that point? Like, you just left it all. I mean, maybe it is just the money, the fame. I mean, it blows my mind sometimes. It just, it doesn't help my pessimistic meter to go down any. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. I mean, is this guy real? Is he genuine?
Yeah, I just preached this the other night at my church. Yeah. And this is something that Jensen Franklin, I love listening to Jensen Franklin. Something that he said was every downfall or every trial or everything bad that goes on in your life, not everything, but every failure can be traced back to two things: a broken down altar and a dusty Bible. And
it's good.
If the devil can keep us so busy doing God's work, but we're not really connected with God, that's a dangerous thing. Yeah. Because in your mind, you're thinking, hey, I'm doing God's work, but really, what's your spirit man look like? Have you prayed? Have you studied His Word? Have you sought God lately? And that's so important. If we don't keep that God connection, we can't do anything. We can't accomplish anything. Yeah. And man in his best state is only man. And so we're bound to fall. We're bound to sin. We're going to do those things if we do not have a connection with God in our lives. So
yeah, that's really good. Yeah. And I think that speaks, not just to, music groups or whatever, but that speaks to men in general. If we don't have that, we don't keep that constant connection with God and in His Word, I think we open ourselves up to anything. And I think that may be why we're starting to see men fall so much, is because they've allowed other things to creep in. And it's sad to watch happen to guys, because you can warn them, you can tell them, but you can't make them. And I've been hearing the last several weeks, guys been talking with, just they tell me the same thing. Like something has started to bring them back. Like there was a wake up call. For some, it was 2020 and that whole mess. Others, it was just been something in their life that's just kind of happened, and I mean, God seems to be drawing them back somehow. And so it's cool to see that. I think God is doing something in a lot of men's lives, but even more so, I'm enjoying this conversation because I think guys need to know that there's others who wrestle with real things, like you say, patience, but then also, but they're going to keep going. Like they're not going to let that make them quit. You know, they're going to keep battling. They're going to keep persevering. It's like I like to say, but they're not going to stop. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
You can't stop at the middle of the mountain. You got to get to the top.
That's good.
And once you're there, you've overcome that battle, and you may have that battle later on in life, but you've already overcame that. You've been there, you've experienced that. Hey, I don't go back there. I was just reading a scripture a minute ago where Paul said, when I was a child, I spake as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And there's trials you look back and you say, hey, I grew up. I know better now. And so that's the good thing about experience, because experience is the best teacher. You can look at somebody's life and say, well, I would never do that, or I'd never want to do that. But until you experience it, you don't really understand what they're going through. So,
I think culture has tried to teach us that hardships are a bad thing, which no one likes to go through them. But I think if we view hardships the proper way, they're tools that will help you either fall, hopefully not, but more than likely they're going to help you grow. And I think that verse right there, a child says, I don't want to go through any of these hardships. I don't want to do any of these hard things. I don't want to do any of that. And that's exactly what culture's teaching us to say. But when I became a man, I did away with childish things, right? So it's part of becoming a man, I think, is embracing the hard, embracing the horrible things, right?
Deal with it.
That's good. Deal
with it.
Yeah.
Shake it off. Just keep on. Like I think I heard on one of your previous podcasts that you're working out. And at one time I was benching 300 pounds, and that's a lot for me. I'm not a very big guy. I'm 5'7". And at one time I was there like every day, pushing it every day, pushing it. And to see results, you're going to have to, be willing to face the pain. Unless you face the pain, you won't see results. And that's the same, with God. Unless you go through pain and suffering, you don't know what it's like to truly enjoy the pleasures of joy and victory. Because before every victory, there's going to be a fight. And before every mountaintop, there's going to be a valley. And if God never took us through valleys, we would get so spoiled by the mountaintop, we would be demanding everything from God. I want this, God. I expect this. I expect that. But it's in those valleys that he teaches us that we really need him.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. It reminds me of the Israelites in the desert. I mean, God's taken them out of Egypt. God's given them, manna. He's given them water. He's given them fire by night, wind by day. He's given them everything they need. And what do? They just whine. They whine and they whine and they whine some more. And it's like, do you not see? I mean,
and it angered God. That's the thing I tell my church a lot is, God said he inhabits the praises of his people, not the complaints. So anytime you complain to God, you can expect him to kind of ignore it. He's not going to do anything for you if you complain. Nothing. But when you get to the point where you realize, hey, I can either complain about this or I can start thanking God for the breakthrough. Because when I do that, God will start showing up. Yeah,
that's good. That's really good. Hey, I don't want to keep you all night, Matt. I really appreciate you, man, coming on here. I'll drop all your links and stuff in the description so people can go check out your channel and your podcast and all those different things so they can follow you around. But if you have a final word that you just want to challenge the guys out there who will listen to this, What would it be?
Be a man.
I think you stole
Be a
that.
man. Yeah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be honest with people. But I posted this today on my Facebook. Out of all of the courageous things you dare to do, dare to be kind. And kindness goes a long way. When somebody does you wrong, when you feel like you owe someone revenge, Jesus never took revenge out on anyone. And so one of the most powerful things about his life was his love. And so if if somebody does you wrong, somebody cuts you off, somebody cuts you in line, don't go off on them. It doesn't show that you're a man. It just shows that you have a pride problem. And you're like one of those children we were talking about.
Yep.
Paul said, I put away childish things. So be kind, be a man, be strong, go work out, go do your thing, but be patient with people.
That's good. That's good. Man, I really appreciate you coming on here tonight. I hope people are encouraged, but I know people will be encouraged by it, because the responses I've been getting is that there's something challenging. Somebody has a different take or a different perspective. We're all saying kind of the same thing, but everybody has their own unique, what's going on in their lives or their different take on things. And I personally find it super encouraging, and I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate you coming on here with me.
Man. Hey, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Oh yeah.